The moment she stepped into the towering glass doors of the corporate building, heads turned. A little girl, barely 7 years old, clutched a crumpled note in her tiny hands. Her mom was sick, and she had no choice but to come instead. No one expected a child to wander into the office of one of the city's richest and most intimidating CEOs, but here she was, standing in the middle of a polished marble floor, looking up at the massive figure behind the executive desk. The CEO, a man known for his sharp suits and even sharper decisions, barely looked up from his papers, but something about the girl's nervous, determined eyes made him pause. Was this just a lost child, or something more? As she stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper, she handed over the note. The room fell silent, the hum of the air conditioner suddenly loud, as everyone waited to see what would happen next. No one could predict what the millionaire would do. Would he send her away, call security, or against all odds? There was a tension in the air, a mix of curiosity and disbelief. The little girl's small presence seemed to fill the room, and for a moment, the powerful CEO seemed unsure how to react. What happens when innocence meets power? The answer would surprise everyone in the office that day. But before that, the CEO's next move would change everything. And that moment right before it happened is exactly where this story begins. The little girl's hands shook slightly as she held out the note, her tiny fingers almost invisible against the crisp white paper. The CEO leaned back in his chair, studying her carefully. He had dealt with ambitious adults, demanding clients, and cutthroat negotiations. But a child walking into his office unannounced was something entirely different. Who was she? And more importantly, why was she here? Behind her, the office buzzed quietly with assistants and interns trying not to stare, whispering to each other about how unusual this moment was. They had seen millionaires act in countless ways, stern, cold, generous, or brusque, but never had they witnessed a scene like this. The girl's eyes were wide but focused, carrying a weight far beyond her years. Her mother's illness had forced her into a role no child should have to play, yet she stood there as if she belonged. The CEO glanced at the note again. The handwriting was neat but small, a child's careful attempt to communicate something urgent. His curiosity deepened. What could this little girl possibly want from someone like him? And why did he feel a strange pull to hear her out? Despite the whirlwind of meetings, calls, and deadlines waiting just beyond the office doors, for a brief moment, the office seemed to shrink. Time slowed, and the air held a subtle tension. Everyone could sense that whatever was about to unfold wasn't ordinary. It could be remarkable, unsettling, or life-changing. The girl shifted her weight, her voice barely audible as she tried to speak. And then, with a look that mixed fear and hope, she began to explain, but the CEO's reaction remained a mystery, leaving everyone holding their breath. The little girl finally cleared her throat, her voice trembling but determined. "My mom, she can't come today," she said, glancing nervously at the CEO. "She asked me to deliver this." The note was small, but the message carried urgency. The CEO picked it up slowly, scanning the words. It was unusual, almost impossible, for a child to step into a high-stakes environment like this and demand attention. Yet the sincerity in her eyes made it hard to dismiss. Meanwhile, the assistants exchanged anxious glances, unsure whether to intervene or stay back. Whispers ran through the office like electricity. Why would a child come here alone? Is this some kind of scam? The tension was palpable, but beneath it all was curiosity. Everyone wondered, what could a 7-year-old want from one of the richest men in the city? From the girl's perspective, every second felt heavier. She had imagined this moment countless times, rehearsed the words she would say, yet reality was overwhelming. The sterile, polished office, the imposing desk, the man with the sharp eyes, it all seemed larger than life. She thought of her mother, lying at home sick, depending on her courage. That thought gave her strength, but it also made her heart pound faster. The CEO, for his part, leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. His mind was a whirlwind of questions. Was this child in genuine need, or was it a clever trick orchestrated by someone else? And if it was real, what did that mean for him, for his carefully structured world? As he looked at her again, he realized this moment might require more than business sense. It might demand empathy, intuition, and a decision he had never faced before. Outside the office, the city moved on, unaware of the delicate standoff inside. The girl waited, small but unwavering, while the CEO weighed his next move, and the office held its collective breath, hanging on the fragile balance between innocence and power. The little girl took a deep breath, clutching the note a little tighter, her small hands trembling. The CEO studied her silently, leaning back in his chair, his sharp eyes never leaving hers. The office felt unusually quiet, every click of a keyboard and shuffle of papers from the surrounding assistants fading into the background. It was as if time itself had slowed, focusing entirely on this unlikely meeting. The girl's voice wavered, but she pressed on. "Mom, she says this can't wait. She needs help, and I didn't know what else to do." Each word carried urgency, but also a weight no child should have to bear. The CEO's mind raced. He was used to solving problems with contracts, meetings, and numbers, but this wasn't a spreadsheet or a boardroom decision. This was real life, raw and unpredictable, and it demanded more than logic. Around the room, whispers grew, some sympathetic, some doubtful. The assistants exchanged glances, uncertain if this was a brave child or a disruption that needed to be handled. Even the security team paused at the edge of the room, caught between protocol and curiosity. Every person present felt the tension building, like the air itself was holding its breath. The CEO leaned forward, resting his hands on the polished wood of the desk. He felt a pull he hadn't experienced in years, a mixture of responsibility, curiosity, and something else he couldn't name. The girl's small, determined eyes seemed to look right through him, challenging, pleading, and trusting all at once. And then, just as she started to explain exactly what her mother needed, a sudden knock at the door made the room jump. Every head turned, the suspense thickening, as the moment poised on the edge of revelation. What would happen next? No one knew, and the answer hung tantalizingly out of reach. Leaving the room suspended in tense anticipation, the knock at the door echoed again, louder this time, breaking the fragile tension in the room. The CEO's brow furrowed as he glanced toward the entrance, instinct telling him something was off. A tall man in a sharply pressed suit stepped in, carrying a folder stamped with the company logo, but it wasn't the usual assistant or executive. His presence had a weight, a quiet authority that immediately shifted the energy in the room. "So, I need to speak with you immediately," the man said, his voice low but firm. The CEO's eyes flicked back to the little girl, whose hands now clutched the note like a lifeline. She froze, sensing that something more complicated was unfolding. She had come with one purpose: to deliver her mother's urgent message. But now the stakes had escalated in ways she hadn't imagined. The CEO's mind raced. Was this new arrival here to protect her, or was it a threat to the delicate situation he was trying to navigate? The assistants stiffened, whispers growing louder, while the little girl's heart pounded against her chest. She could feel the weight of every adult's gaze, the tension building as if the office itself were holding its breath. The man in the suit opened the folder and handed over a document to the CEO. "There's been a complication," he said. "This concerns the matter your young visitor just mentioned, and it may change everything." The little girl's eyes widened. Whatever her mother needed, it was bigger than she thought. The CEO looked at the paper, his face tightening, realizing that the simple act of a child walking in had triggered a chain of events far beyond the office walls. The room seemed to close in around them, the tension unbearable, as the new complication threatened to turn everything upside down. The moment was teetering on the edge, and no one could predict which way it would fall. The CEO's eyes scanned the document, and for a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. The folder revealed that the little girl's mother had unknowingly uncovered a serious error in one of the company's charitable foundations, a mismanaged donation that, if left unresolved, could have cost thousands of lives. The girl's note wasn't just a plea, it was a warning, a chance to fix something that no adult had noticed. The CEO stood, his expression shifting from confusion to determination. "This changes everything," he said, glancing at the little girl. She nodded, her eyes wide but steady, knowing that her courage had already made an impact. He immediately called a meeting with his senior team, outlining a plan to correct the error before it caused irreversible damage. Every assistant and executive watched in awe, as a man known for his business acumen and distance from human emotion, now acted with a rare combination of urgency and compassion, all because of a child's bravery. The office mobilized to resolve the issue. The little girl's presence remained quietly powerful. She had come expecting to deliver a simple message, yet she had inadvertently sparked action that would protect countless people. Just as the tension began to ease, the CEO turned toward her with a surprised look. "There's one more thing," he said, reaching into his desk drawer. He pulled out a small hand-carved wooden figure identical to a toy the girl had shown him earlier. A toy her mother had made years ago. "Your mother? She worked with my team years ago, didn't she?" The girl's jaw dropped. Everything she thought she knew about why she had come here shifted in an instant. The connection was deeper, far more personal, and the story was far from over. The office buzzed with whispered astonishment as the little girl realized that what began as a simple act of courage had uncovered a hidden link that no one saw coming. The little girl stared at the wooden figure in disbelief, then slowly looked up at the CEO. "She told me stories about working here," she whispered. The realization sank, and her mother had once been part of his team, trusted and respected, and now her courage had brought their worlds together again. The CEO smiled, a rare warmth softening his usually stern features. He knelt down to her level, handing her a fresh piece of paper and a pen. "You've done something incredible today," he said. "You reminded everyone here that even the smallest voices can make a huge difference." The little girl's eyes sparkled with pride, a mix of relief and excitement spreading across her face. Around the office, the tension melted, replaced by quiet admiration. The assistants returned to their desks, inspired by the unusual chain of events that had unfolded, while the CEO's team worked swiftly to correct the foundation's mistake, ensuring the donations reached those who needed them most. Later, when the girl left the office, she felt a sense of accomplishment she had never known. She had stepped into a world of suits and power, faced uncertainty, and made a real impact, all while carrying her mother's love and trust. For the CEO, The day became a reminder that compassion and human connection were as important as business decisions. As the little girl walked down the polished hallway, she turned back once, smiling. The office had changed that day not just because of the problem that was solved, but because courage, honesty, and a child's determination had reminded everyone that sometimes the most unexpected people can spark the greatest change. And in that moment, the story came full circle, leaving a lasting lesson about empathy, bravery, and the surprising power of one small act.